Next week we have Monday night, but not Tuesday night, because Wednesday is Rosh Hashanah.
I think we're going to be...
Rabbi, we were at the point where they were like arguing back and forth what Maran said about the cracker,
Yes.
if there's a cracker. And,
Yeah.
but we eat it like bread, and we eat enough of it to be considered bread, but it's... So we should say... so we're still kind of like... We're still at that point.
We had talked about what the purpose was, even if it's, how you also said that bread, that matzah is not really a cracker, but it's really meant to be bread. It's made like bread, it's so thin, that's why it's crunchy, but it's
And the
not
way
really
they
a
make...
cracker.
Because at that, I think the last point you made was they knead it like bread, they they mix it like bread, but then they make it like a cracker. Or like, and then it turns out to be a cracker at the end.
Brings new meaning that song, Put It On a Ritz.
Alright. We're on the bottom page 441. We're discussing about matzot, whether matzot are hamotzi, matzot are mizanot, after Pesach. The two camps are... Is it okay with you I put on the air conditioning?
Yes.
Yeah.
With the matzot, one side of the camp says, listen, matzot are bread. You knead them like bread, you use them like bread, you even eat them like you would eat bread. And what Maran is talking about is a cracker. A little cracker that you eat a little piece of fish with, not your whole meal with. And the other rabbis say, no, listen, what Maran says is what Maran says. Maran says, a hard, crumbly thing is a cracker. A cracker make a mizanot. Ulam hachida b'machzik bracha. The chida and the machzik bracha. The chida is a very special rabbi. You know about him? I've spoken him a few times. Chida stands for Harav, Chaim, Yosef, David, Azulai. Some say that Azulai were Kohanim once upon a time. Because Azulai is an acronym of Isha, Zona, V'chanana, Lo Yikachu. Of the kind of woman that a Kohen are not allowed to marry. It spells out the name Azulai. Some say it's just a legend, so I don't know. Maran, he calls him Maran because he's a great rabbi. In many communities, the Chida is the final authority in halakha. Meaning even Sfaradim who follow Maran will sometimes tell you that whatever the Chida interprets in Maran, that's what they follow. I mean, the Chida is not just another rabbi. He's a big gun in the Sephardic world. He's even a bigger gun in the Hasidic world. There's certain Hasidim that are very into the Chida. In fact, the Sidur HaChida that you'll go find, most of them are not Sephardic Sidurim. They're Hasidic Sidurim with the Chida's commentary. The reason for it? The Chida spent much of his life wandering from community to community in Europe, collecting money for different institutions and reading books in different libraries. He has an encyclopedia of all the books that he ever saw in Jewish libraries and all the names of rabbis who wrote books that he's familiar with. He was put in prison once for 30 days and he wrote these 2 volumes. I have them in my house. There are some mistakes in there, but suffice it to say that the Chida wrote them by heart because he had no access to books in those 30 days. So he'll tell you there's 1 volume of rabbis and 1 volume of books. He'll say, oh, the book Bet David, who wrote it? You open up the letter Bet, you'll see Bet David. He'll tell you Rabbi so-and-so. You want to read more about him? Go to the other volume. He'll tell you where he was born, where he died, other rabbis that lived in his generation, all by heart.
That's a Pharisee.
That was pretty incredible. I just last year, maybe even 2 years ago, I was zocher, first time in my life, to buy every book the Chida ever wrote. Wow. They reprinted the set of the books of the Chida. I bought, it was like 27 volumes, but it's over 50 books that he wrote in his life. 50.
Where in your living room is it?
It's all my whole, actually I moved them recently. Now they're in the leftmost bookcase in my house. You'll see a bunch of books that look the same. That's the set of the Chida's books. Commentaries on the Chumash, commentaries that he wrote on the Talmud, commentaries on the Kabbalah, different books of Hebrew grammar, all kinds of things that he wrote about. One of his books, by the way, it's very funny. One of his books is called Chomat Anach. I don't know a literal translation for you, but imagine like the straight wall, the upright wall. It's a commentary on the Chumash. Anach means Oraita, the Torah, and then Nach, Nevi'im and Ketuvim, like Tanakh, but it's Anach. He publishes this book in a place, and you look, it's one of his few books that are printed not in the other cities like Livorno where he printed books. It's printed in a place called Pisa in Italy. You have to wonder
Leaning Tower
why,
of Pisa.
in a place where there's the Leaning Tower of Pisa, he prints a book called The Upright Wall. Some say it's a subtle hint as to what he was thinking about when he was there. Like, what's this crazy tower leaning sideways? But this is the Kehillat was a world traveler.
When did he live?
I want to tell you about 350 years ago. He
About
was
300 years.
alive in the generation of the Baal Shem Tov, if that helps you.
Was he like Rabbi Yonatan Halevy in terms of travel?
I don't know.
You know about him,
I
right?
know not so well.
He wrote travel logs. He went all over Europe and visited all the Jewish communities.
So he did something similar.
But, you know,
There's even an interesting, if you look in his book on rabbis, under the letter Resh, he writes Rabbanit. And he includes there some 36 or 38 Rabbaniot whose writings he encountered, or whose commentaries in the Talmud, or that he discussed Torah with. Many of them Ashkenazi, actually the majority of them Ashkenazi, that were teaching Talmud. One of them was a Rosh Hashiva. One of them was unbelievable things that he records. It's not like some liberal thing he records. It's like a normal fact of life that there are Rabbaniot who are world-class Torah scholars.
That's a big deal.
Very big deal. But the Kehillat, thank God, is one of those Sephardic rabbis the world hasn't covered up. So his books are very prevalent in the Jewish community. Obviously, selectively, people will read what they want. But the Kehillat writes in his book, Machzik Bracha,
There you go, the page.
the bottom of 441. כתב מתחילה לפקפק על דברי שערי כנסת הגדולה והבית דוד. He initially argues with the last rabbis we mentioned in the last class, who say that matzah is hamutzi. שערי המצות הן קשות ביותר, because matzot are crunchy. You can't say they're not crunchy.
but he said that matzot used to be soft.
We're talking here about
They're crunchy.
crunchy matzahs.
Okay.
And we're probably talking about matzahs that after the first day you bake them, no matter what, they get crunchy.
Even those.
Yeah, the soft matzahs, they get hard if you leave them out for a few hours. A tortilla, you tell me, put a tortilla out, what happens to it?
No, it gets hard.
It gets hard. That,
It's
I
a
mean,
thick
it
one.
might not be as hard as the special crunchy matzah you get in the box.
If you have a thick one, it doesn't.
I don't know that anyone ever baked matzah that thick. Even though you're allowed to, I don't know that anyone
you
ever
said
did.
the thickness of your hand, right?
Correct,
Or
but
your fist.
no one did such a thing.
Okay.
It was, that's the limit, but nobody did
Nobody
such a
pushes
thing.
the
Nobody
limit.
takes chances with Pesach. Imagine if you would take a tortilla, not the one with preservatives and all that, the flour, water, lemon juice, and put it on the countertop for a few hours. Probably
Yeah,
come back for
hardens.
dinner, it'll get crunchy. It might not be as crunchy as the machine matzah, that's true, but it's not bread. You wouldn't classify it as a soft bread. Viveshot levad mika kisnin, and just dry things are called crunchy in terms of halakha. Veshani Pesach, the only reason why on Pesach you would make a hamotzi, shu koveh lehen, because he's making that his meal. He's establishing his meal on that. V'havi kedim kriyut sudan pata baba kisnin shuvah hamotzi, like any other of these kind of foods, cakes or pastries, or that if you, that is your meal, you would make a hamotzi on them. His reason he's telling you is that the reason you make hamotzi on Pesach on matzot, that's the central part of your meal. But the rest of the year, that's not the truth. And in parentheses he writes, "V'nirash kavanato shebepesach kivan she'en lanu lechem acher ela hamatzah." Someone said this yesterday. That maybe what you could say is that on Pesach you don't have any other kind of bread. So this is your only option in terms of bread. You said that yesterday? So, someone over here said
Somebody
that.
did say that.
Af b'shiur kebitzah chashiv kriyut sudah, so even just eating the size of an egg is considered establishing a meal. Ven sheach lomar b'zeh b'tala dato etzel kol adam, k'tamil al'inen sha'ar pata b'kisnin. Okay. Bottom line is, that's the reason why it would be hamotzi on Pesach, because that's the only bread we have to eat. V'sheken minhag rov hamon ha'am, and it's the custom of most of the people on the street to make a mizonot on matzah during the year, and hamotzi on matzah during Pesach.
Interesting.
Mikol makom. He finishes his words, Siem shachar hashkafa hetev, that after calculating this well, yesh l'kayem divrei bet David, you should take into consideration the opinion of the rabbis who say that matzah is hamotzi. Don't just make a mizonot on matzah. V'yareh shamayim, and a person who has fear of heaven, mihiyot tov, in order to avoid any conflicts, lo yochal matzah, page 442 in the right column, lo yochal matzah chara pesach kim k'shkoveh aleh. The only time you should eat matzah on Pesach is if you're using it as your meal. After Pesach. Meaning, after Pesach, the only time you should use matzah is if that's your meal, and then according to all opinions, you would make a hamotzi on that. Umashman, from here
So
it's...
if you have matzah shmura after Pesach, you would normally make a...
He would say make a hamotzi on it.
But you should try to, but there's opinions that it would be...
Right, that's the other side.
Even a shmura.
Umashmash mikar adin svir alei delo keknesset hagdola b'beit David, and it seems like his main opinion really is more like those who say hamotzi than those who say mizonot.
142.
וכן משמע מדברי גינת ורדים, and there's some other books, that דווקא בפסח ברכת המוציא, that it's only on Pesach that you make a hamotzi on matzah, מפני שהיא לחמו של הפסח, because this is the bread of Pesach. אבל בשאר ימות השנה ברכתו מזונות, but the rest of the year, matzah is not the bread of the rest of the year, and therefore its blessing is מזונות. וכן פסק הבית מנוחה, שאף לכתחילה רשאי לעשות כן, וצריך כלל לקבוע עליה, וכן פסוקים האחרונים. And a number of rabbis felt this way, that the rest of the year, matzah is mizonot. You don't even have to try to eat it in the middle of the meal. It's just a mizonot. That's a fact.
I'm so confused. You just said, I thought I heard I just wrote it down that if you eat it, like during the rest of the year, if it's part of your main meal, to make hamotzi.
But the rest of the year, there are some opinions say that even if it's...
So it's both. There's both. Okay.
And
It's not an absolute right now.
No, nothing is absolute
It's
aside from confusion.
Does it matter? Does it matter on the majority of the people that you're eating with, maybe? Or
Oh, very good. He says no.
okay.
He says not. This is not a matter of subjective. This is an objective rule of matzot.
so he's discouraging the use of matzah during the year.
It depends which opinion.
I thought I heard
The
you say-
Chida is saying if you're going to eat matzah during the rest of the year, eat it only in a meal that is your main meal.
So if you're sitting at a table with somebody, and you both have a pile of matzah in front of you, not like outside of Pesach, and you can make a mezonot and he can make a hamotzi, and then you
Correct.
guys will argue the whole meal
Correct.
about why you're wrong.
As long as if you have 3 people, now what do you do about Zimun?
A fist fight. That's what.
Oh.
I missed last time, but it's just still the same cracker versus
Yeah.
bread thing.
Yes. So now,
Well, I don't want to distract you, but I was talking to Marlene last night, and I was thinking about the complexity of the various brachot that you make over food and disagreements. And basically, I think that the complexity makes it simple to follow brachot, simply because whatever you do, you're saying a bracha over something. And the least you could do is say shakol, and you're covered. Are you?
everything was good except for your last few words.
Okay.
Okay? The answer is like many things in Jewish law. Someone's like, Rabbi, it doesn't make a difference what I do on Shabbat. I'm going to be breaking a rule according to somebody, and I'm going to be making someone else happy. So I can do whatever I want. Yes and no.
But there's
Correct?
also- there's a
I'll give you an
lot of
example.
opinions, like there's less-
Let's imagine there's a fruit that some people say you make a ha'etz on. And some people you say you make ha'adama on. So some people say you make a blessing on a tree, and some say you make a blessing on the ground. Why? Because the classification of a tree is not as simple as what you and I think.
Right, because it'd be like a bush.
A bush, is a bush a tree? Well, it depends. What qualities does the bush have? How tall off the ground is it? How hard is its main trunk? Does it give fruit all year? Does it not give fruit all year? Seasonal? Yeah, this is the questions that come up, and the rabbis are splitting hairs. If I make ha'adama on something that grows on a tree, did I make a blessing in vain?
Yes.
It depends on the substance, no?
Think through this. What does the blessing ha'adama say?
It's
Thank you, Hashem, for blessing the fruit of the ground, the things that come from the ground.
okay. So
Nothing that grows on a tree doesn't come from the ground.
right.
At one point in time, it
Ah,
could
I
technically
see.
be a ha'adama. But the other way around is not true. If I make a ha'etz on a potato,
Definitely not.
the fruit of the tree, definitely that's a blessing in vain, because it didn't grow on a tree. And therefore, if there's an argument between making a blessing on a fruit of a tree or fruit of the ground, you might actually err on the side of caution and just say ha'adama. So it really depends what blessing they're arguing about, not just if there is an argument about blessings.
Yeah. Okay.
Because eating something without a blessing is a rabbinic prohibition.
Yeah.
Saying Hashem's name in vain is a biblical prohibition. And that's why the famous halakha that you've heard from me so many times, when you're in doubt as to whether to make a blessing or not, you don't make a blessing, you just do it. Because the danger of saying a blessing that's wrong is worse than the danger of doing a mitzvah without a blessing.
So it's better to eat something without a blessing?
By food it could be different, the blessings on food are different. But for example, the greatest thing about this, many rabbis say you make a blessing on Hallel on Rosh Chodesh. Many rabbis say you don't. Because it's not something that our rabbis ordained, it's something that was a custom of the Jewish people. The rabbi says you can't make a blessing on a custom. It's hard enough to make that blessing on a rabbinic commandment, let alone on something that's less than that. And therefore, many Sfaradim have a custom not to make a blessing on the half Hallel. And many would say, even if you disagree with that opinion, it would be better for you to say Hallel without a blessing than possibly say Hallel with a blessing and say God's name in vain. Because what happens to the person who puts on tefillin without a blessing, or says Hallel without a blessing? Do you get a mitzvah for what you're doing?
Yeah, because
Yes,
you're putting out
yes.
tefillin.
You just lose out on the extra credit of making a blessing on it. And therefore, if I had to choose between losing out on my extra credit or breaking one of the 10 Commandments, I would choose losing out on the extra credit.
So you're only losing the extra credit, that's all.
Correct. Where it starts to get complicated, especially for Sfaradim, is what happens when Maran says to make a blessing on something and the whole world disagrees with him. Now we're caught in a conflict of loyalty to Maran. We accepted everything Maran says, whether to be strict or to be lenient, or saying Hashem's name in vain. Do you make a safek? You cast doubt on opinions of Maran, or Maran is Maran? This is already a war internally in the Sephardic community, between perhaps rabbis like Rav Mordechai Eliyahu and Rabbi Yosef, or the Ben Ish Chai and other Sephardic rabbis. What do? What happens when the Arizal says to make a blessing that Maran says you're not allowed to make? Who do you follow? I mean, does your loyalty trump a 10 Commandment or not? This is a big question. And if it does, how do you justify that? Those are big questions. And so yeah, it sounds like there's a reason for everything. And when it comes to shakol only works on things when you don't know what the blessing is. But if you know what the blessing is and you make a shakol, some opinions will not be happy with that blessing. Now, shakol is generic, but only generic when you don't know. When you do know,
Well, when you say you don't know, if you're not sure, it's better to say shakol.
because we consider that a situation where I don't know. For example, when you make a blessing on Havdalah, on Besamim, what's the blessing on Besamim? Borei? Depends what kind of Besamim it is. If it's a tree, you say Borei Atzeh Besamim. What kind of Besamim is a tree?
The tree. That's it.
No, that's a different blessing. Atzeh Besamim, let's say rosemary, or Hadas, myrtles. Those are halachically considered trees. You would say on them, Borei Atzeh Besamim.
That's right. Bushes.
Mint leaves, like nana, Moroccan mint, you would say on those, Borei Isbei Besamim. Those are herbs. Those are not trees. Like if you make a blessing on basil, you would make a blessing on I don't know what bay leaves, I haven't seen them gross. I don't know.
What's that?
Bay leaves?
Or a tree.
A tree. Now, if you make a blessing on a fruit, what do? Let's say a beautiful smelling lemon. You scratch lemon and you smell. You make a special blessing of Hanoten Reach Tov Bapirot. He who puts a fragrant smell in fruits. Now, many Ashkenazi authorities say you're not allowed to make that blessing because it's a question how you pronounce that blessing, and therefore they avoid that entirely, that whole category. But there's one last opinion. What about things that are generic bisamim? Either you don't know where they grow, or some opinions say that you would make a blessing on perfume or cologne or things that are not necessarily. Now, there are some people that when you meet them, you have to make a blessing on them because they reek like cologne. You shake their hand, and I used to once be a rabbi at synagogue that every time I shook someone's hand, I had to go wash my hands in the sink. It was unbelievable. How much cologne could you put on one hand that even when the next morning I'm still smelling cologne? It's Hashem Yishmo. So the blessing of minei besamim, all literally means all kinds of besamim. That is the shehakol of smelling blessings. And therefore, you'll notice that in Ashkenazi communities on Saturday night, they always say Borei Minei Besamim.
Yeah.
the reason the Rama mentions in Mishnah Bo, I don't remember one of the two of them. He says that in Ashkenaz, people, especially the ignoramuses of the group, were not familiar with which tree, which blessing, and therefore the rabbis ruled just make the same blessing for everybody. Make a boy minim samim because people are not familiar with these halachot. It could be just a very simple fact that some of these things didn't grow and people didn't see them. They were imported spices.
Would a clove be a fruit or
A clove, the blessing on cloves are boy atzei b'samim, of a tree, if I'm not mistaken. The same with cinnamon.
Cinnamon tree.
Bark of a tree. Now, what happens in a table that I make havdalah, and they give out both rosemary and nana?
Yeah.
In that situation, I make a boy minei b'samim. That way, it covers everybody at the table. Yeah, I do. That's correct.
Yeah.
And that's the proper thing to do because I know that if I make an atzeh and someone smells on East Bay, they're not going to make their own blessing, and therefore that's exactly the situation that the rabbis of Ashkenaz are talking about. That people don't know what to do in that situation, and so you have to help them out.
So do the Sidurs of Sephardim have all the breakdown of the various kinds of...
No, they have the three blessings, but not what the halachot are. You have to learn that separately. It'll say boei minei atzei East Bay. It'll say that there, but it won't tell you what each one is. I mean, it's not the ones I've seen.
No, I don't mean... They can't
No, but the blessings are there, yes.
Yeah.
Why is it so important to get caught up in the details of all this?
Oh, Angel. Now, when we're 5 minutes late, you ask me this question?
I couldn't get my question out
Good.
there.
And on 1 foot, because I can teach the whole Torah now on 1 foot. Yeah. And really, there's one more paragraph, which we'll have to do next week. Which is good, because then we'll end on a topic before the holidays. There's a whole world of people who are busy saying, why do the details matter? It's like people used to say, I don't like to be involved in organized religion. So today the new argument is, why all the details? Hashem really cares how you tie your shoes? And the answer to that question is, when my wife sends me to the store and says, buy me cucumbers, but don't buy me those big ones, buy me the small Persian cucumbers. And I come home with the big cucumber, and I said, what is the difference? A cucumber is a cucumber, right? He says, no, but I told you. So why is it important? Well, it was important because she asked for it. Meaning, if Hashem didn't care about the details, He wouldn't offer us to do details. So this whole thing of, do you think God cares about the details? I do think so, because He commanded us in them. And that's the mean answer to this question.
Right.
The mean answer is, yep, He does care about the details. Then you're going to split hairs, so what about the rabbinic details and those? And when we're trying to fulfill the words of Hashem, we're trying to do the best job we could possibly do. If that sometimes looks like we're being a little bit obsessive compulsive, if it looks like we're splitting hairs, if it looks like the whole purpose of that is to fulfill Hashem's word in the most complete way possible. Hashem says, do not cook on Shabbat. We're willing to do all kinds. What is cooking? Is making tea on Shabbat cooking? Is instant oatmeal cooking? Those are details. Yeah, but if I don't deal with those details, I might actually cook on Shabbat, and then Hashem, who told me not to cook, it's not that I'm just into the big picture. I really messed up the whole big picture by not taking care of the details. The details are essentially there to help us observe the big picture. When the details begin to detract from a person's observance of the big picture is when someone has become obsessed with the details. In the words of the Kotzker Rebbe, he once said there are those who have fear of Hashem, and then there are those who have fear of the Shulchan Aruch. You have to decide who you have fear of. Now, he was not mocking the Shulchan Aruch, God forbid. He was telling you, I observe the Shulchan Aruch not because it was the Shulchan Aruch, but because I believe that this is the way that I'm serving Hashem. But if your service becomes to Rabbi Yosef Karo or to any other person instead of to Hashem, that's when you begin to question, so why is it that I'm doing what I'm doing? And then enough of the story, because Yom Kippur is next week and I'm late anyways. Rosh Hashanah is next week. Yom Kippur is the week afterwards.
Does Nafel do on Simchat Torah?
Yes, absolutely. Even on Shabbat also. It's a good question.
Because I am dancing on Shabbat.
Yeah. Well, in the Kotzker Rebbe, they had a famous Chassid that joined Kotzk, and his name was Rav Leibele Eger. Rav Leibele Eger was either the son or the grandson of Rabbi Akiva Eger. He was a famous prodigy of the Lithuanian world, and when he decided to go Hasidic, his family had shiva for him. For him, he had left Judaism entirely. He became a Christian, and they had a yahrzeit for him. It was. Don't laugh. This went up until the 60s and 70s in this country about people who intermarried and all kinds of things like that. It's a very old Ashkenazi tradition to disown children. by sitting shiva or by things
Yeah,
like that.
the
It's an
jazz
old
singer,
what?
the jazz singer.
Yeah.
the-
Okay, so this is a very I don't know where it comes from, but it's kind of like you
Yeah,
want to see
right,
how
right.
what we think about you. We're sitting. It's an unbelievable concept, but okay. And he decided to go to Kutsk because Kutsk were like they were the brilliant Hasidim, and he didn't want to settle for those Hasidim that drink and tell Rebbe stories. He wanted to go somewhere that was his Lithuanian presumptuousness already speaking. So he goes to Kutsk, and he spends a long time in Kutsk. Some say even 6 months. And he decides, Yom Kippur is next week. After Yom Kippur, he's leaving because there's nothing that special about Kutsk that he didn't have in his Lithuanian upbringing. And it's Yom Kippur night. And the story goes, my wife told me the story on my first date with her. We bonded over Kutzker Rebbe stories. And the Kutzkers see, Rebbe Level is planning to leave. He's being discharged from Kutsk. And so one of them comes out and he takes a bottle of vodka. And he tells his friends, come, let's drink a l'chaim. Now it's Yom Kippur night, it's after Kol Nidre, you have to fast. And they say, hey, Lebele, you want to join us for a l'chaim? You guys out of your mind? It's Yom Kippur tonight. Yes, so what? It's Yom Kippur tonight. Come, sit down, drink with us l'chaim. You say, you guys out of your mind? It says Shulchan Aruch that you're not allowed to drink on Yom Kippur. How could you drink on Yom Kippur? Say, you and your Shulchan Aruch, get out of here. Just pull up a chair. And he's horrified. This is worse than he thought. Kotzky thought there was nothing special. Now these guys are drinking on Yom Kippur. Don't you know that it says in the Mishnah and the Talmud that you can't drink? So say, you and your Mishnah and the Talmud, you Lidvak, you're all so much into your Talmud. Yeah. They bring him a cup and they pour him a shot. And he says, guys, tell you what the Torah it says. With the soul that doesn't fast, you'll be cut off from the Jewish people. The Torah says that. He says, oh, now you became a Karaite. You're reading to us the Chumash over here. Yeah? He says, pick it up already and drink. And his friend picks up the guy and says, Baruch atah. He says, hey, don't make a blessing. Don't you know Hashem doesn't let you drink on Yom Kippur? Yeah, so puts down the cup. He says, label it. If it took you this long to realize the reason we don't drink on Yom Kippur is just because Hashem told us not to drink on Yom Kippur, and for no other reason, not the Shulchan Aruch, not the Talmud, not even the Chumash, we who worship Hashem here. If it took you 6 months to pick that up, he says you have a lot more to learn here before you walk away. And he ends up staying and becoming a Kutzker Chassid. And that was part of that message that the Kutzker Rebbe drove into his Chassidim. Sure, we learn the Shulchan Aruch, sure we learn Torah, but our loyalty at the end of the day is to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's where we have to be. And that's where this question really comes from, which is, it sounds like you're being disloyal or just not genuine to Hashem, but really, it's the opposite. That could be true, but we're trying our hardest through these details to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everyone, let's pray.
Thank you.
Thank you.